The Queen saw the change in Camilla, and she saw her dedication to duty, and she also saw her dedication to Charles, because she so helps him.
She's his soulmate, she's his best friend, and I think that's vice versa. I don't think that's one way. I think they both see that in each other.
Camilla was absolutely charming and said how wonderful he was and how much she loved him, and you saw that this was a true love affair.
Charles and Camilla, King and Queen. A new era has dawned. King Charles III inherits the heavy burden of the crown. At his side, dutiful, loving and stoic Camilla, Queen Consort. Camilla Shand was born on the 17th of July 1947, daughter of Major Bruce Shand and Rosalind Cubitt, growing up alongside her brother and sister, Mark and Annabelle. Charles was born the following year on the 14th of November 1948. It is no secret that the road to their eventual marriage and very public commitment to each other was not an easy one for the couple. Charles and Camilla were, most probably unfairly, deemed the villains in a story that captivated the nation. Their childhoods were very different, as Charles always knew that he was destined to become king, and he carried the great weight of responsibility and duty on his shoulders from a very young age. In the 1970s, the then Prince Charles was known as one of the world's most eligible bachelors. It was a predestined part of his responsibility as heir to the throne to marry a suitable, aristocratic young woman and to continue the line of succession. By comparison, Camilla led a much more relaxed and idyllic childhood, which many would compare to the blissful, innocent lives of the characters depicted in stories by Enid Blyton.
Well, Charles was in love with Camilla from a very early age. You know, when he was still in the Navy, he fell in love with Camilla. She was funny, she was a great rider, and she made him laugh. And I think that she's very, very attractive to both men and women because of her personality. She's got a wonderful personality. And you know, when Charles first met her, I mean, she didn't care what she looked like, but you know, she was a great horsewoman, she was really sporty, and I suppose she was a challenge too. Because, you know, she was basically in love with Andrew Parker Bowles. So I think she had a lot of ingredients that Charles really, really fell in love with, and he never really fell out of love with her. So it is a very romantic story.
Lucia Santa Cruz, his first brief love affair, had decided that the bachelor prince would get on very well with a friend of hers, the young Camilla Shand. The couple was introduced, and it's reported that Camilla immediately said, "My great-grandmother was the mistress of your great-great-grandfather. So how about it?" She was referring to her great-grandmother Alice Keppel, who was allegedly the long-term mistress of Charles's great-great-grandfather, King Edward VII. A cheeky and humorous introduction that would mark the start of an epic romance. Charles and Camilla both felt a dangerous but beguiling and instant magnetic attraction, and they quickly struck up a romantic relationship. Camilla would attend Charles's polo matches in Windsor Great Park, and they became known as a couple at the exclusive members-only club, Annabelle's in Berkeley Square.
Well, Charles is like very old-fashioned, very respectful, charming man. He likes women. He is definitely not a woman hater. And he is also a people pleaser. But he has got a very short temper, and he's if he loses his temper, he's then incredibly sorry and full of apologies. So he's basically a very kind and thoughtful and very sensitive person.
In the 1970s, Charles had completed his education at Cambridge University, and he was undergoing training to join the armed forces. Having trained as a jet pilot in the Royal Air Force, Charles went on to pursue his career in the Royal Navy, facing a fast-track 6-week training course at Britannia Royal Naval College in Dartmouth. He was whisked away from Dartmouth, allegedly as a result of a plot by senior royals to get him away from Camilla. He went on to serve on HMS Norfolk, HMS Minerva, and HMS Jupiter, which took him far away from the woman he loved. At the time, Camilla was not deemed an appropriate choice for the wife of the future king, and Charles was still quite young. He publicly stated he wished to marry by the age of 30, but they had not made that all-important commitment to each other. So, whilst Charles was away serving in the Navy, Camilla married her other great love at the time, Andrew Parker Bowles, an army officer, a man with whom she had had an on-off relationship for several years, and with whom Princess Anne had allegedly had a brief affair before she herself married and settled down.
I think Charles was very, very hurt when Camilla and Andrew got married, and he stayed well out of it. He was away at sea.
Charles was said to have been extremely upset about their marriage. He felt he had completely lost someone who had such a special place in his life and in his heart. He was thousands of miles away, at sea, in a small cabin on board his ship.
In steaming heat, Prince Charles's frigate, HMS Minerva, edged her way into Nassau Harbour. A few minutes before, he had formally ended his duties as one of the ship's navigation officers and taken on the role again of His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales, with his personal standard broken from the mast. In the month that he's been with Minerva in the Caribbean, he several times visited the Bahamas Islands, but this was the first time he'd made an official visit. To get to Rawson's Place, where the welcome speeches would be made, the prince walked at speed through an aisle of shouting, yelling Bahamians, with security men running in front to clear a path for him. If it was all a bit confused, the prince showed no sign of being put out by it. The speeches were from a dais placed in front of the old Nassau landmark, the statue of the prince's great-great-great-grandmother, and were brief to the relief of those in full dress with the temperature in the 90s.
I've been looking forward with eager anticipation to visiting Nassau.
There will be 5 days of ceremonial engagements before Prince Charles rejoins Minerva next Wednesday for 2 more months of Caribbean patrol as a naval lieutenant.
He knew it was going to happen, but he just didn't want to be part of it. So he just stayed well out of the way, and I think he was very, very sad about it, but he knew that probably there was nothing he could do about it. Well, there wasn't anything he could do about it.
Charles remained close friends with the newlyweds, Mr. and Mrs. Parker Bowles. He and Andrew would play polo together, and Charles also became godfather to their son, Tom. It is said that in 1979, after the death of Lord Louis Mountbatten, Charles turned to Camilla for a comforting shoulder, and they rekindled the spark from many years previously. However, after his decision to marry Diana, he and Camilla ended any romantic connection until, as Charles himself said, the relationship with Diana became irretrievably broken down. In the years that followed, scandal after scandal would come to haunt both Charles and Camilla. The prince's marriage to Princess Diana began to fall apart as their incompatibilities came to the surface. Diana had done her duty, producing the heir to the throne and his younger brother, but their differences were simply too much to bear for them both. Famously, one night at a birthday party for Camilla's sister, Diana confronted Camilla about her relationship with Charles.
I think Diana was terrified. She says she was. And she looked for Charles. She was looking. They went to Annabel Goldsmith's house, beautiful house in Richmond, and it was a big party on probably on 3 or 4 floors, and she looked around, where's Charles, where's Charles? And then she realised that he must be downstairs on the lower level in the sort of basement area. Not a basement like we know, but a very glamorous downstairs rooms. And she went down there, and there they were. And then, you know, she obviously got this real anger, because you'd have to be very angry to do that, and brave. And she just confronted Camilla and said, you know, I'm not stupid, I know what's going on. So Camilla must have been completely taken aback. I mean, you don't expect that to happen.
The couple had spent a month apart when they reunited to visit Welsh flood victims. But after a few hours together, Prince Charles went straight back to Scotland. The rumours about their marriage were now presented as fact. The prince was also absent during the princess's 30th birthday celebrations. The press were now calling the marriage a cause for concern.
1992 was the year that things changed in the eyes of the public. Whilst the marriage between Charles and Diana had been falling apart for some time, it would be the year that the nation discovered what was going on behind the palace doors. Diana was secretly working at arm's length with author Andrew Morton on the book Diana, Her True Story, which detailed Charles's relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. Diana, too, had begun extramarital affairs, and by the end of the year, the sad duty to announce their separation befell Prime Minister John Major. The press had a field day, and tapes, books and interviews that would be released one by one caused not only Charles and Diana to separate and later divorce, but also Andrew and Camilla Parker Bowles to go their separate ways.
There were so-called secretly recorded tapes everywhere. First, Dianagate, allegedly a conversation between the princess and a male companion she called Squidgy. Then Camillagate, allegedly between Charles and his lover. Then the Highgrove tapes, supposedly of arguments between the prince and princess at their country home.
Joining me now in the studio is Andrew Morton, the author of Diana, Her True Story, which brought to the public's attention the state of the royal marriage. Mr. Morton, the palace said today that no third party is involved. Can that be right?
Ostensibly no, but given the fact that the Princess of Wales believes that Prince Charles's friendship with another woman, Camilla Parker Bowles, has cast a long shadow over that marriage, must be considered when you look at the failure of this 11-year union.
Has the interest of the princess and the friends who fed you the information for your book been satisfied by the outcome of today?
I think that we're seeing a situation where the Princess of Wales has everything now that she could possibly want for while staying inside the royal family. She still has custody of the children, she still has her royal position, she still has her royal duties, which should give her so much satisfaction. And now she's managed to ease out the man in her life, Prince Charles, the man who's given her over the years so much pain.
And was your book part of the process of getting her what you describe as satisfaction?
I think that's rather Machiavellian. I set out to write a profile of the Princess of Wales, not just her married life, not just her royal life.
I think the public were quite shocked when the separation was announced, because I think they just thought, well, you know, it's going to go on, you know, we're going to have more and more and more dramas and more stories. But I think we probably didn't think that there would be a separation.
Tabloids contacted tonight by ITN, including The Express, The Star and The Sun, said they wouldn't publish the full text.
The press in general is at the centre of a major debate over privacy, with the Calcutt report looming and the controversy over that even today. So we have taken the decision today not to publish the full transcript of the Camillagate tapes.
But with thousands of copies of the magazine now being faxed around Britain, some editors are uneasy.
Those in the know in London and the chattering classes and those with fax machines to Australia can know what's in it, but the rest of the country doesn't. And that reminds me of the 1930s, when a few editors and posh people in the know knew about the abdication crisis, plain folk didn't.
Buckingham Palace tonight declined to comment on the contents of the magazine. There's been no comment from Mrs. Parker Bowles. In the past, her husband has dismissed such allegations as rubbish.
It was a conversation Charles and Camilla had previously, and it obviously was done by a radio hacker, but it was very intimate, regardless of the fact that Camilla was absolutely charming and said how wonderful he was and how much she loved him. And you saw that this was a true love affair, but it was just awful. And I think all the foreign press was saying, no, there's no way this man can ever be king. It was that embarrassing.
Would the princess be sad, relieved? How would she be tonight, now that all this is out?
She is relieved that at last the lying is over, the masquerade is over, the whole thing is out in the open.
And Prince Charles?
Well, for his part, obviously it's a sad day, because he will have to soldier on, knowing that more revelations about his private life, his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, may well come out in the future.
You think that's a possibility, that there'll be more revelations about third parties, despite what the palace says?
The fact that the Camilla Gate tapes, the so-called Camilla Gate tapes, have not yet been published remains a sword of Damocles hanging over Prince Charles's head and could fatally damage his position.
I think Camilla was in a very, very unpleasant situation. She almost became a prisoner in her own home. She was vilified. She was absolutely hated by everyone. I mean, actually, the Queen felt very sorry for her. She called her their much maligned woman, because, you know, they've known the Parker Bowleses all their life.
Whilst the 90s proved an extremely challenging decade for Charles and Camilla, with divorces and scandals, they were finally free to continue their relationship. But it turned out not to be quite so simple. The nation's sweetheart of the time, Diana, died in a tragic accident in August 1997. A grieving public would not take kindly to Charles and Camilla flaunting their relationship, and so the couple kept their relationship private and out of the public eye.
Especially after Diana died. I mean, then she was even more of a prisoner.
And so began a period where Camilla's life was reduced to being very much in the background and kept almost entirely from public view and, importantly, kept away from the prying eyes of the media. It was a challenging time for Charles and Camilla, but they patiently persevered. In an attempt to try and restore the prince's reputation, Mark Bolland was appointed to help with Charles's public image. Having lost Camilla once, Charles was not going to allow the courtiers to dissuade him from his relationship. He declared that Camilla was a non-negotiable part of his life, and though this was met with disapproval in some quarters, they continued their relationship. So Mark Bolland's task was to enhance both Charles and Camilla's profiles. As heir to the throne, he really needed the support of the public. Charles has not simply been a king in waiting. He has got on with his job and more than fulfilled his duty, focusing on his charitable pursuits and working extremely hard to have a meaningful and purposeful life. The Prince's Trust, the environment, and the Duchy of Cornwall have all made an enormous positive impact on the lives of millions of people. He has already more than done his duty to the nation. Although a monarch is not chosen by public vote, nonetheless, public opinion is extremely important in maintaining confidence in the institution of our monarchy. In the Queen's historic and record-breaking reign, she had ample time to prove her ability to fulfill the role of monarch. Until the end of her life, she was held in very high regard by the public, which was part of what made her reign such an enormous success. She embodied everything the people believed it means to be a Great Britain. Unfortunately for Charles, his public image was badly damaged after his marriage to Diana ended. He was vilified by the media and was struggling to rejuvenate his reputation. Some were calling for him not to take his place in the line of succession and to instead let Prince William take his place when the time came.
Well, Charles is a great believer that time is a healer, and he is, in essence, right. And he thought, if we take it very gently, we'll get it right, and people will accept Camilla because she's wonderful, and people have accepted Camilla, but it did take a long time. And there's a lot of people that will never accept her. But it did take a long time, and they did it very gradually. Then they became under so much pressure for the first picture of them together. And they thought of all different ways of doing it. Maybe they just should release a picture of them together. Maybe they should arrange for them to be out somewhere and press would just happen to be there. But in the end, they decided to do it at Camilla's sister's birthday party at the Ritz. And they let everybody know, or their press officer let everybody know, that they would be walking out of the party together. So there was an unbelievable bank of photographers. And even now, when they show this moment, they put a warning on television, flash photography. It was just like crazy. But people got the picture of Charles and Camilla together, so that was the beginning.
In 1999, Charles and Camilla decided enough time had passed since Diana's death that they would be happy to reveal their commitment to each other as a couple.
Outside the Ritz, they're ready for one of the shots of the year. Charles and Camilla together at last. Tonight, it's expected the couple will leave a birthday party together, finally acknowledging in public a relationship that started back in the 70s.
If you ask any photographer which the picture they want to take, it's Prince Charles with Camilla Parker Bowles. It's the one great picture left to take.
How important is it not to miss the shot?
Oh, it's you can't afford to miss it. You know, you've got to get the two of them together, walking down those steps. If you get that, you're there.
The Prince of Wales and Camilla Parker Bowles about to come out now.
As they left the Ritz, the photographers crowded outside. The flashes of the cameras were blinding as the glamorous and smiling couple walked down the red carpet to their waiting car.
The Prince of Wales and Camilla Parker Bowles seen together in public quite clearly, coming down the steps of the Ritz after the party for the 50th birthday party for Camilla's sister. No secret about their relationship now, none possible at all. The photograph that people have waited so long, the picture that people have waited so long to see. Quite brief, really, out of the doors, down the steps, into the car, and driving away. An absolute cascade of flashbulbs, only a few seconds, but the picture, the scene that says so much.
Overnight, the press has rolled, turning 15 seconds on the steps of the Ritz into history. Once rumours gathered pace that the couple would appear together here at the Ritz Hotel, royal watchers were out in force in a type of media interest not seen since the days of Diana, Princess of Wales, and all to get that one important picture that shows the charade is finally over.
Well, the public have been longing to see them together, so I think they liked that. But there was a huge animosity to Camilla, especially in America, where they love Diana and still do. You know, in America, everything's about glamour and how you look, and they just thought, well, she's not glamorous enough. And they didn't think that maybe she was exactly the sort of woman that Prince Charles needed, because they didn't really know him.
This is good. This is what he should have done a long time ago. Obviously, they love each other. Now they can get on with their lives. And I think the press will afford them a fair degree of privacy now.
I think that he had to suppress that love. He isolated himself from that relationship for the first 5-6 years of his marriage out of a sense of duty to the decision that he had made. Did he always love her? Yes, and now you see the fruit of that.
Slowly but surely, public perception began to warm, and so did relationships within the royal family. The Queen accepted an invitation to attend the 60th birthday party of the King of Greece at Highgrove, knowing that Camilla would also be in attendance. As the first public meeting between Camilla and the Queen, it was a strong signal that she was beginning to acknowledge and even accept their relationship. That year, Charles had also taken Camilla as an unofficial companion to various engagements in Scotland.
Prince Charles was in the driving seat this morning as he left Highgrove, knowing the road is now officially clear for him to continue his relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles. He's said to be delighted that the Queen has finally acknowledged his long-term companion.
It took until 2001, at an event for the National Osteoporosis Society, for us to catch a glimpse into the couple's affectionate side, when they shared their first public kiss.
Camilla greeted Charles with a kiss. It was the first time the couple had shown such affection in public. Also at the reception, some 300 guests, including ex-King Constantine of Greece and his wife Anne-Marie, whom Camilla knows well.
the view has changed of Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, because at one point she was vilified by the media. It was always negative. It was, home wrecker and all this kind of thing, and having the affairs and the affair with the prince and everything, and so people just didn't want her, didn't like her. I remember that. I remember when I joined the household and somebody knew that I was the butler and just said, "Oh, I don't like her," and I remember thinking, "Wow, really? You don't know her, but you don't like her." And that's changed to where today, I don't remember, I don't remember the last time I read anything negative or bad about her. I can't remember. It's always positive, it's always good. As far as PR goes, she's done an amazing job at, I think, at changing public opinion. So I remember one morning, the television was on in the other room, and suddenly we had breaking news, and it said the Prince of Wales has announced his engagement, and we worked for him, but we didn't know. We didn't know. And I remember getting into the room and watching this, and we were all like, wow, they're engaged, and we didn't know.
Did you see anything you're right to be my night, sir?
Are you looking forward to the big day? Are you looking forward to the big day?
I'm delighted for the Prince of Wales and Camilla Parker Bowles. It's very happy news, and when the Cabinet heard it this morning, they sent congratulations and good wishes on behalf of the whole government.
They've waited long enough, but tonight they emerged as a couple soon to be wed. If you've been together this long, you've perhaps a right to demand a ring worth waiting for, and in this regard, the royal family doesn't disappoint. Camilla sported a whopping diamond upon her finger, and she was clearly on a high.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much indeed.
Can I see a ring?
You can have a close look.
How are you feeling?
How are you feeling, ma'am? All right.
Just all right?
I'm just coming down to earth.
Did you get down on one knee to propose?
What else?
Good things come to those who wait. That was certainly true for Charles and Camilla. Having spent years building their public image and warming the hearts and minds of those closest to them, a very special announcement was made. In February 2005, Charles and Camilla were engaged to be married, 35 years after having first met.
I think it's very difficult to know William and Harry's relationship with Camilla. I think that they certainly didn't. And then William was the first one to meet Camilla, which was slightly by accident. He met her at St James's Palace, where his father was living at the time. And he, I think, Camilla just didn't interfere in their lives, and I think they really warmed to her.
No, she is, she's a wonderful woman, and she's made our father very, very happy, which is the most important thing. William and I love her to bits, get on really well with her. And as far as I see it, nothing's changed. I'm not around that much. I'm at Sandhurst. William's just finished university. Now he's doing a bit of work here and there, so we're not around that much anyway. But when we are around, everyone's happy, everyone's fine,
Your Royal Highness, 8 days now to the wedding. Can I ask you how you are feeling?
You've heard of it, have you?
In particular, Princes William and Harry are feeling at the prospect of the marriage.
Very happy. Very pleased. It's a good day.
Prince Charles, how are you feeling?
Well, it's a very nice thought, isn't it? I'm very glad you've heard of it anyway.
Prince William, can I just ask you, are you looking forward to being a witness?
Yes, very much so, definitely. As long as I don't lose the rings, I'm all right. Yeah. The one responsibility, I'm bound to do something wrong.
I think in the early days, in fairness to her, I think it was obviously slightly nerve-wracking as well, because she was marrying into the family. She obviously knew the family very well, but suddenly she was marrying into the family and was going to become, well, one of the most senior members of the royal family. So I think there was quite a bit of pressure for her, but she's never, in all the years I was there, she never changed. She was always the same.
It was not all smooth sailing. They scheduled their wedding for the 8th of April 2005, but unfortunately, Pope John Paul II died. Prince Charles was expected to attend the funeral on behalf of the Queen, so they had to postpone their wedding until the following day. As this was a last-minute change, much of the memorabilia from their wedding day was dated incorrectly. On the 9th of April 2005, Charles and Camilla married in a civil ceremony at Windsor Guildhall, with an approving Prince William as best man, and both William and Harry were delighted with their father's newfound happiness. Charles and Camilla were finally wed. Though a much more scaled-down event than Charles's first wedding, it was clear the day was a very happy one for the royal couple.
I was busy working at Highgrove. A phone went. One of my colleagues got the phone and he said, "Oh, there's a phone call for you." And it was one of the Prince's top aides, one of his top aides. And he said, I've been asked to phone you by the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. He says, because they would like to personally invite you to their wedding. Because as a member of staff, you haven't completed the amount of time, but they're sending you a private invitation. I remember that as if it was yesterday. I remember exactly where the call took place. I remember my thoughts. I remember the phone. I remember everything. I remember trying not to get upset because I was so emotional and excited about this. And it was unbelievable. I mean, it was amazing because sadly there I am as a guest of the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall, and with all the celeb friends, with other royals, VIPs, dignitaries, prime ministers, and I'm there as a guest.
The role of the Prince of Wales and Duchess of Cornwall was varied. Together and separately, Charles and Camilla took on hundreds of patronages, supporting causes to aid a greater awareness of important causes, and also to raise much-needed funds for the charities concerned. Charles and Camilla did a great deal of work together. They became important ambassadors for the United Kingdom. In their overseas tours, requested by the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office, they worked hard to maintain diplomatic ties with countries across the globe.
I think they're wonderful together. In that royal world, you really can't be on your own. It's very, very difficult. You know, she is the perfect person to stand at Prince Charles's side.
Their first official overseas tour together was to the USA in 2005. Many comparisons were being made to previous tours by Charles and Diana, but to the great relief of all concerned, the trip was enormously successful, with Camilla being warmly welcomed by the American public, who really appreciated her down-to-earth attitude. Their first stop was at Ground Zero in New York.
Last night saw the first true test of this royal visit, a high-profile reception at New York's Museum of Modern Art. A cross-section of people attended, including some celebrities and the city's elite.
I think she's got a great sense of humor, and you need it. So.
Yesterday, they began their tour with a gesture that will be widely appreciated in America, a visit to Ground Zero. The Duchess on her inaugural foreign trip, laying flowers at the site where nearly 3,000 people died on that September day. In enduring memory of our shared grief, the royal couple wrote, and all around them, the memories of lives lost. 67 Britons were killed on September the 11th, and Prince Charles and Camilla dedicated a small garden to their memory.
Both my wife and I were profoundly moved by what we saw there. And I think it is so fitting that their lives will be commemorated in this garden.
If over the next week Americans tune in to this visit at all, their curiosity will be centered on Camilla.
In recent years, following the height of the coronavirus pandemic, the Prince and Duchess were the first members of the royal family to undertake an overseas tour, when they travelled to Jordan and Egypt and were welcomed by old friends, King Abdullah II and Queen Rania. On the 70th anniversary of Queen Elizabeth's accession to the throne, Her Majesty released a statement saying, "And when, in the fullness of time, my son Charles becomes king, I know you will give him and his wife Camilla the same support that you have given me, and it is my sincere wish that, when that time comes, Camilla will be known as Queen Consort as she continues her own loyal service. Having stated after their wedding that Camilla would be known as Princess Consort, this was a clear statement from the boss that Camilla had successfully won the hearts and minds of the nation, as well as her mother-in-law. The Queen has personally shown her appreciation for Camilla's work and her loyalty to the crown, clearly expressing her wish that she take the title many thought she once did not deserve, Queen Consort. Following the death of her beloved husband, Prince Philip, in 2021, the Queen began to slow down in her royal duties. She has faced periods of illness, including catching coronavirus, and recovery took its toll on our remarkable Queen. Charles and Camilla began to take on more duties and engagements previously undertaken by the Queen. In that way, they have shown together that they are truly capable of stepping into her shoes.
Which I think is important to the Queen, because I think she's a huge believer that as the wife of a king, that lady should be Queen Consort. That's how she sees it, and I think that's really important. So that's why has asked all of us to acknowledge that wish and accept her as the wife of Prince Charles, as a Queen Consort when he becomes king.
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the longest reigning monarch in British history.
The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow.
On the 8th of September 2022, Queen Elizabeth II died, and at that moment, Charles and Camilla became King and Queen. A moment Charles would later say he had dreaded his whole life. Buckingham Palace announced the Queen was under medical supervision, and one by one, members of the royal family were making their way to Balmoral to see the Queen. Charles and Anne made it to Balmoral to be with their beloved mother as she peacefully passed away. The end of the second great Elizabethan era and a time of tremendous sadness for the family. Broadcasters announced her death and stated the King and Queen will return to London the following day. There is no pause in the continuity of the monarchy, and endeavouring to follow his mother's example of duty and service, Charles stepped up to his duties as king. After greeting crowds at Buckingham Palace, Charles and Camilla walked through the Golden Gates as King and Queen for the first time. On Saturday, the 10th of September, the Accession Council gathered at St James's Palace to undertake the vital and centuries-old tradition of proclaiming the new king.
The Prince Charles Philip Arthur George is now, by the death of our late sovereign of happy memory, become our only lawful and rightful liege lord, Charles III.
God save the king!
For the first time in history, this historic ceremony was filmed and shown live on television around the world. The Privy Council proclaimed His Majesty as King Charles III. Camilla and William accompanied Charles as witnesses to the ceremony.
My mother's reign was unequaled in its duration, its dedication, and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life.
In the days following his mother's death, King Charles, accompanied by Queen Camilla, visited the different nations of the United Kingdom, being mostly warmly welcomed. In a time where families would ordinarily grieve together in private, Charles was very visible, following his mother's example of trying to connect with the nation's people. He met with the crowds waiting in the famous queue to see the Queen lying in state, and visited those across the country who were grieving too. On the 19th of September, playing an important role in the late Queen's funeral, King Charles walked behind his mother's coffin, alongside his siblings and sons. A poignant moment indeed. Arriving at St George's Chapel, a smaller funeral service took place. For the first time, the chorus sang "God Save the King." Charles, obviously so moved by the moment, struggled to hold back his tears. The weight of the crown is now on his shoulders.
The first rendition in St George's Chapel of God Save the King, I think he nearly lost it. It was so emotional, and the strong voices and the choir and everybody really, really meant God Save the King. And I think that was extraordinary for Charles.
On May the 6th, 2023, the first crowning of a monarch in 70 years will take place. The coronation has been planned for many years, referred to as Operation Golden Orb. Though said to be scaled down compared to Queen Elizabeth's ceremony, the pomp and tradition will still feature. Charles and Camilla will be crowned king and queen. Following his mother's death, Charles's life and responsibilities have changed. As king, he is no longer able to be outspoken nor to speak so freely on his passions and opinions. Instead, he must be seen to remain unbiased and objective. After so many years in training, King Charles has taken on his duties and responsibilities with ease, dealing with the famous red box each day, meeting with prime ministers, presidents and state officials, and attending various state engagements. He has taken his new role in his stride, recently hosting South African President Ramaphosa at the first state visit and state banquet since his mother's death. Queen Camilla has begun to make her mark as queen. Speaking at an event at Buckingham Palace, she detailed her concern over the global pandemic of violence against women. Camilla also helped to retrieve the ubiquitous Paddington bears left outside Buckingham Palace following the Queen's death. And in cooperation with the Barnardo's Children's Charity, she made sure they each found new homes with young children. In a story of love and loss, heartbreak and happiness, Charles and Camilla remained united, king and queen. Their resilience following torment by the media has ultimately proved their determination and the overarching principle of duty and service which guides their lives.
The Queen saw the change in Camilla, and she saw her dedication to duty, and she also saw her dedication to Charles because she so helps him.
She's his soulmate, she's his best friend. And I think that's vice versa. I don't think that's one way. I think they both see that in each other. And, you know, when you see them together and they're on the same wavelength, I think the Queen and Prince Philip had it. I think Prince Charles and Camilla have got it. I think William and Kate have got it. And they're really lucky. They're really lucky that they've got that royal connection.
Eventually, history will decide the successes and challenges for the new king and queen. But whatever they do in their new roles, they will do together.